Hello and welcome to episode 35 of Matchett and the Other Guy. Kevin and I, as ever, sitting outside my home on the banks of very sunny and quite warm Lake Wylie. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm well. There's good evidence of the wildlife. We've just had a encounter, as I guess you'd say, or an experience.
Yes, I'm never sure if it's a falcon or a kestrel or a hawk or whether they're all interchangeable names for the same bird, but beautiful looking bird of prey. And occasionally when I'm sitting out here on a quiet evening, just taking in the joys of the solitude in the lake, I will hear this splash, really like someone's chucked a big boulder into the lake. But it is one of these birds of prey that from seemingly hundreds of feet up will just dive straight into the water head first. And I would say 90% of the time they come out with a fish in their claws and away they go.
Yeah. This one was just swooped down probably 20 feet from us, right off the front of the porch.
And actually, I'm going to say, I don't know what we're talking about on our episode today, but we're already off topic. Well, we can't be off topic. We haven't got a topic.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's our excuse.
When I first moved down here about 5 or 6 years ago now, there was relatively little construction around here. And as a result, we used to see fairly few of these hawks. But because of the increase of construction the other side of where we are, and I guess a lot of that natural habitat that they've been used to for forever has been taken away, we're seeing a lot more wildlife come down to the lake now, which I suppose it's a tragedy in a way. The deer are exactly the same. They have nowhere else to go, so inevitably everything ends up on the banks of the lake.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we see them swimming in a bunch across the lake, as we've mentioned before.
Yeah, we've seen the deer swimming across the lake, and we've seen the birds of prey, and I enjoy all of that, but I think it is, if you take Charlotte as one, as a case of isolation, and the seemingly endless construction work and the destruction of the woodlands, times that by every major city in the States and times that by every country in the world, God, what an awful situation it is for wildlife. But a chap was telling me once, he said, deer actually, and I'm just reporting this story, I don't know if it's fact, but I have no reason to disbelieve him. He said deer actually need remarkably little land to live on. If they've got a little strip of land somewhere just to get down in the evenings, and they'll be fine.
My neighborhood is a prime example.
Yeah.
We had them then this morning. There was one, I guess kind of she was laying because she popped her head up above a fallen log, and was just kind of watching us.
Yeah.
And then we could see another one on our tree line. But I mean, we can maybe have 8 going through, and we're a very old neighborhood. That neighborhood's been there at least since the 70s, maybe the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And grown up around, in lots, there's always been stuff around our area, and there are constantly deer coming and going.
The other thing that I'm always delighted to see, because it makes me think of Mum. My mum was absolutely fascinated with squirrels. She loved to watch them playing in her garden at home, and whenever I was away with work, particularly with Benetton, and I would go to parks or woodlands or anything, if ever I saw squirrels, I would always snap a picture of the squirrels and print them out and send them to her. She loved to see squirrels. And the squirrels here are, they seem so tame. They will sit on the decking here just a few feet away and just watch me. And then they'll just kind of turn around and trot off, but there's no sense of urgency or haste in them at all. I love to see the squirrels at play.
Well, it's funny you mentioned squirrel. Just yesterday, I have, we mentioned my daughter, and she's 8, and she's very tender-hearted, especially toward animals and such. Well, we'd gotten home from a trip, and I was upstairs kind of putting some stuff away, and she was downstairs with her mom, and I just heard, "Daddy!" And so I come down, there's a dead squirrel on our patio.
Oh, dear.
And on our we have a little glass table with the kind of like bar stool size mesh chairs.
Yes.
And he's just, flat, just kind of out. And I'm like, well, okay, so let's go out there. And, I'm trying to, calm her and whatever, and we get out there. And we open the door, and as soon as we kind of make the turn to kind of go out there, he kind of pops up and jumps down. And I said, he was laying there flat as a pancake, just completely spread out, looked dead as could be. And then I'm probably like going, this he's probably worn out. He's like, I finally find a place to get some rest, and here you people come.
Well, it's so funny you should say that, Kevin, because our gentle listener can't see this, but come with us. Take this journey of imagination with us, gentle listener. To my right, over here, I have some patio furniture, typical sort of lounges and a couple of chairs with the cushions on. And typically, the only creatures that use them are the squirrels. But sometimes they will lie they will lay flat on top of the cushions there, just like you describe.
Oh.
As if they're a sun lounger.
Well, they appreciate you putting out that very soft little bed for them.
That's right. And in play sometimes when I'm inside the house, I can see them through the windows on the cushions, and I will tap on the window and say, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?" And they'll just kind of look through, but they're not bothered at all. They're not slightly fussed.
We've actually, usually in the mornings, I'll make my daughter's breakfast or whatever I'm sitting here for lunch, and I'm always cutting off strawberry tops.
Yeah.
And I'll cut her an apple almost every day. So there's
Okay.
always 2 core pieces.
Okay.
From the half I've cut and then whatever, and I'll go out the back door and chuck them over, and inevitably I may go look 5 minutes later and they're going to be gone.
Squirrels have had them.
Yeah, I think they've gotten to where they expect it now. They're probably like going, "Hello, it's
Yeah.
it's
Where's
almost 7:30. Where's our breakfast?"
Seriously, where's the strawberries?
But yes,
That's
it,
right.
it was a couple of days ago that one was out there, and he was we have a little kind of a step up path that goes kind of up to our higher part of our backyard, and he was kind of in the path. So I just kind of individually chucked the strawberry things, and who knows, I might have bonked him on the head with one of them, but he was happy as a clam because he scooped one up and he ran up on top of a little brick thing there of one of the walls and was just nibbling the town on that strawberry, and he probably finished off the rest of them.
Now, answer me this if you can, or I'll just put it out there. Maybe one of our listeners can educate us both. I have never seen squirrels take a drink of water from the lake, and I don't know where are they taking their water from.
That's good. I don't think I've ever
I've
seen a
never seen-
natural
yeah,
one
I
drink,
kinda-
or even out of a bird feeder. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Maybe they don't do that in some. Maybe they rely on green vegetation or something to take the moisture from it. I have no idea, but I often think about that watching the squirrels at play here down at the lake. I never see them take a drink.
Well, they definitely. I saw a video. Again, you get into these vortexes online, and it was showing where I think it was somewhere where there must have been a really bad drought, and this video somebody took. They were hikers or something like that, and they had a bottle of water, and this squirrel came up to them, and was just kind of looking at them, and they popped the cap on it and held it down there, and he just held his little paws on the edge of it and just drank and drank and drank and drank and drank that water, and then took off. So he was probably in dire dehydration, and was begging for water.
Wow.
So I've seen that. Now, I would never thought about that again unless we had this conversation about it. I guess they get it that way, or not naturally, but
fascinating.
they find, I guess, somewhere sources.
Well, actually, I say that about the squirrels, and I know we've mentioned this before. I also have rabbits down here. Not many, but I know there are a few around. And they are the same. I never see the rabbits down taking a drink at the lake. But maybe this is all activity that happens nocturnally, and they do that for self-preservation because those hawks and kestrels won't dive down and take them off.
Yeah, probably.
Perhaps, I don't know. Perhaps
We are seeing more of them right now because of the time of the year. Yeah, we'll see them around our neighborhood, stuff like that.
the rabbits, or
the ones that have been born in the springtime or getting older and hopping around and doing their thing, I guess. But yeah, my daughter's real good at popping a shot of those. She'll be driving along, and go, "Hey, rabbit," that type of thing. She probably gets that from her mom. But,
well, they probably have a fairly good life here. Many folks would leave them alone. I'm saying that because I was thinking back to my time in France. And if dear old Madame Fauconnet could get her hands on the rabbit, believe me, in 15 minutes that would be in the kitchen and being prepared for dinner.
Yep.
There's no question of that.
Well, again, kind of where I live, and it's fairly populated. I think me taking pot shots at small critters isn't going to be well accepted by anyone in the neighborhood. So,
well, we're not talking about wildlife. I'm going to.
But we can. I think we're on a roll here.
Oh well, let's carry on then. Maybe
I think we've shifted course. I think we can talk about wildlife this time. This is a first, but let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. So, what other wildlife stories have you got?
funny you mentioned squirrels. We went down. My wife has some friends that live. They have a house near the ocean, and I've never seen these. And you may never count it. They have squirrels down there that are black. They're black with like white tips on their ears, and they're very much a regional thing as far as I know.
Aren't they skunks you're talking?
No, they are definitely squirrels. And somebody listening probably knows, oh, that's the blah, blah, blah squirrel.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they have, they said, oh, when you get down there, you'll see a bunch of them. And they running around, and I guess there are certain species or...
Well, it's funny you should say that, because in the States, did you ever used to have red squirrels? Red-furred squirrels. I mean, it's sort of like a fox-coloured reddish brown.
That sounds familiar. I think it's probably a regional thing in the U.S. somewhere.
Yes. Now, the reason I ask you is because at one time, England, Scotland, Wales, and perhaps Ireland too, the dominant breed was the red squirrel. And somehow, I'm going to call it the North American grey squirrel, and I'm probably very wrong there. But when that grey squirrel was introduced into England, pretty much killed the red squirrel off in a very short period of time. Yeah,
and that's what we have here. That's, I'm sure, what the typical
yes.
gray squirrels, which on your porch, is in our yard.
Those
eating our strawberries,
yes,
that kind of thing.
Those grey squirrels that we were just chatting about, they would be all over England now, and they became the dominant breed. No doubt about that. And I can't really ever remember the red squirrels. I mean, I kind of maybe seen one or two as a kid, but my mum always used to talk about the red squirrels. And they were much bigger as well. They were much bigger, maybe about 25% bigger, but presumably they were also more docile. I don't know, but when the grey squirrel was introduced, in a short period of time, they took over.
Yeah, I've only ever lived in the southeast of the United States, and including Florida in that. So that's the only squirrels I've ever encountered. So I'm not sure what ones are around the very vast region of the country that I've never lived in.
Well, I'll tell you what, and this is another thing we're always thinking about, we should research this online, but if you look back to, say, the tales of Beatrix Potter or children's books that were written about animals, let's say in the 1920s, I bet those books would be full of illustrations of red squirrels, not grey squirrels.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I do remember, again, going back, we know now after doing this podcast for so long that I moved to Florida when Dad took retirement, and I was about, just turning 12, and we had gray squirrels there. But I remember Dad commenting, "These are the scrawniest squirrels down here in Florida." They were the same squirrel, but they were a lot thinner. Their tails weren't nice and bushy. They just didn't seem to thrive as well down there as they did, growing up in Tennessee, and now we're in the Carolinas and such.
Yeah, I guess that's probably evolution at work for you there. That a lot of creatures perhaps don't seem suited to a particular environment, but in fact they are in a different way. They've survived, and other strains of that breed have died away.
Yeah, of course, we're used to the Carolinas. The Carolinas seem more, lush and stuff. And of course, you've got soil and stuff here, whereas in Florida, everything's kind of coming out of the sand, and you've got palms and different things that probably just aren't good food sources for certain type of animals. Mammals, I think, probably have a more harder time down there.
Yes, well, I'm sure they do. Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Really, how these things happen. And I suppose international travel. But I mean, going back with wooden ships and into steel ships, but since that international travel has happened as a result of us humans spreading around the world, of course, that's spread so many different species from country to country that the entire world has changed. I think it's only, what do we talk about now? The Galapagos Islands is the only place that's been left in isolation. Everything else has been, for want of a better phrase, cross-pollinated. But I think the Galapagos is probably the only place left.
Yeah, and of course a lot of that, has caused very, very big problems, with wiping out or whatever, like you say with the squirrel or something like that, or something else comes in and is a real big problem.
Yeah.
For certain areas.
Now, funny, and again, we have to factor in global warming and the warming of the oceans, etc., etc. And the reason I say that is, Kevin, only the other day, I'm sure I was looking online somewhere, and there was a sighting of a whale in the River Thames in London, and I think the whale had beached itself and swum up the estuary from the ocean. Of course, you never see, how many whales do you see around that part of the world? Very few, I'm thinking, but one had had come over with the warmer waters and got itself beached in I want to say in London, but somewhere close to London, where the Thames is anyway. Yeah, remarkable how the world is changing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think this is the case. I don't know if they were brought there or accidentally ended up there or whatever, but I think it's a known thing that I don't think there's any snakes in Hawaii.
Really?
I don't think on any of the islands. I could be wrong about this, but I think there's no snakes in Hawaii because the mongoose population, the wild mongoose population, is so high that they don't have a chance. Mongoose will take them out. So you're generally not gonna have to worry about venomous snakes or any other snakes, I guess, bothering you in Hawaii.
Yeah, and like we've chatted about this before. I'm not sure whether or not we chatted about it on air during one of our podcasts, but we're not really bothered by snakes over in England, or almost anything over in England. No, there's nothing really there that's a danger. No poisonous spiders, no scorpions, nothing really that's going to bother you. Yeah.
Yeah, and in contrast, I think we chatted about this before. I can't remember if it was on air or not, but
Right.
you go to Australia and everything wants to kill you.
Absolutely, every single living creature seems to want to take you out if you're in Australia. Whether it's flying in the air, it's on the land or in the water, on the surface of the water or underneath the water. Every single thing seems to want to kill you.
Well, and I remember talking with someone who was traveling one time, and they were somewhere, in the deserty area of part of the world or something like that. And they said, our guide said, okay, it's morning time. Before you put your shoes on, be sure to check for scorpions. And I'm like, whoa! I don't know if I want to go anywhere where my daily routine has to have me checking for scorpions. They're one of those things I just look at and go, what the heck was this thing built for?
Yes, well, as we've chatted about before, again, whether or not on air, but it doesn't really matter, is I like to believe that most creatures, when they encounter us humans, want to run in the opposite direction. Because
I think the vast majority.
the vast majority do want to do that, right? I think.
But you step on them, and they're gonna make themselves known.
That is the problem when you step on these things by accident.
Well, and too, it's funny how like being younger, I would be freaked out if a bee got close to me and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
you're just it's going to sting me. But you mature, and now you just sit calmly, and especially with all they've talked about in recent years about how important they are.
Sure.
And we just you sit and you let it kind of check you out, and it's going to move on. It's not going to.
I
It
think
has
it will-
no interest in bothering you, usually. So
I think twice I've been stung by bees, and it's really, to me, I mean, I know some folks are allergic to them. It can
Yeah,
be a
you have to be
problem.
very careful with that,
but Fortunately, I'm not, and I've been stung by a couple of honeybees, and it's nothing. Within 5 minutes, it's gone.
yeah.
One time, I remember it's how these things stick in memory. I'm not sure. I was actually driving to work at Bannerton through the Oxford countryside from Chipping Norton in my little, I think it was a Ford Fiesta, and it was the summertime, and I had both my windows open. It was a beautiful, wonderful summer's day in England, which actually, although England gets a very bad reputation for constantly raining, we do have some wonderful summers without the humidity. And I was driving along with both windows open, and a honeybee flew in through the passenger window and landed on my arm, and I think was so confused and couldn't figure out what was happening. He thought he was under attack and stung me. I thought, well, that's very unfair. I just brushed him off, and he went out of the driver's window, and off he went. But yeah, then left his little sting. Unfortunately, left his little sting in my arm. But within 5 minutes, it had gone. But I just remember that particular poor old honeybee didn't know what was happening to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that kind of reminds me of a story, and it's because I've got a very good friend of mine, and he's just one of those that's just deathly afraid of spiders.
Right.
And I was driving along one time, and down from the visor or whatever, right, but between the steering wheel and I, just this little spider came down, and he was probably, a third the size of your smallest fingernail.
Yeah.
Just
tiny
not
little
big
thing,
at all.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just a little
yeah.
brown something or other.
Yeah.
I knew he was harmless. And I think I probably got his web and kind of did something with him, put him somewhere. But I remember thinking, yeah, if that was my buddy driving, this car would have been into a tree immediately, because there would have been, and probably taken out 3 other cars with him at the same time.
Yeah. We used to have in France, well, I know they're still there, I'm no longer in France, but in France, my neighbours warned me of the frelons, which were local hornets. And they were as big as a big little finger. 2.5, 3 inches long. Pretty serious things. And 2 or 3 stings from Freylon would be you need to go to hospital.
Wow. Yeah, they can be mean
They
buggers.
can be mean. Yeah, exactly. But again, fortunately, we didn't tend to see that many of them. But I do remember chatting to the local fire service, one of the local volunteer fire service in France. One of their jobs is to deal with Freylon nests. Don't deal with it yourself. Get the experts in, and the fire service would do that.
And I will agree with that philosophy.
Absolutely. And I remember those guys saying to me, yes, we're seeing a lot more Freylon now than we ever used to in the Charente down in the western part of France. And they put that down to an increase of temperature. As it's getting hotter, it's getting warmer,
Oh.
these things are beginning to spread, and we're seeing a lot more of them. And I do remember stumbling across in one house, a little old house that I bought for renovation in France, in what was an old stable, which I turned into a little garage for one of my cars. But in the stable, I found a Freylon nest, but it was an old nest, so it was no longer active. But it was the size of a beach ball, twice the size of a soccer ball. If you can imagine that. I mean, so 12 inches, 18 inches across, a big thing. And I thought, gracious, if that was full of Freylon, I wouldn't want to go anywhere near it.
No. Well, the house we're in right now was the house that Ruth, my wife, grew up in, and we've kind of taken it over. At one point, when we're kind of getting it ready, we were going to sell it at one point, and we were kind of, it had been, lived in, but, just not a lot of stuff was done. And on the window of actually what was Ruth's childhood room, that's now our daughter's room, the hornets had built the nest on the window.
Oh, wow.
So it was a perfect, like, science thing to
Yeah.
you could look right into it.
Wow.
Unfortunately, fortunately they had gone.
Yeah.
But I said that would have been fascinating to watch them from the safety of the inside of the house through the glass, watch their community work inside there, because
Well,
it was just a perfect window
They're
into their
fascinating.
world.
They are absolutely fascinating to watch, whether it's bees or wasps or hornets. I guess they all follow pretty much the same principles of their community life, but how they organize themselves. And yeah, it is fascinating to see that stuff in action, isn't
Yeah.
it? If you just make sure that you're just not being stung by the things.
And again, we talked about it when I moved to Florida. When we got down there, and I must have been in school when this story happened. And Dad is long gone, so I'm sure he won't mind me telling this story. He was kind of getting settled down there, and he was doing some yard, doing something out in the yard.
Right.
And he came across this little mound of ants and stuff. Well, he's just like he was in Tennessee. We have those little black ants in Tennessee, and he just kind of kicked it along, and all of a sudden he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And the story goes that by the time he made it into the house and made it through the garage and into the house, he was pretty much buck naked because he'd gotten into a fire ant mound
Oh,
and didn't know what they were. He'd never heard of a fire ant.
well, I'd never heard of fire ants till I moved to the States, I must say, but I'm aware of them. Fortunately, I've never been attacked by them or bitten by them or stung by them. Well, the expression is bitten, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'll get you
So
good.
they're nasty things, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not, a huge bit. You'll find them and avoid them once you know.
Yeah.
But that was always the kind of thing in Florida. It's not like every day you got to be on your top guard. But if you see one or a mound of them, generally don't mess with them, or don't set your picnic down right there or whatever, or plop down to take a quick breather.
Yes,
But,
and are those fire ants, if you can tell me, are they all across the United States? Or
It must be a southeast thing, because
Okay.
again, I'd never heard of them in Tennessee.
Yeah.
We got down there. Now they are here in Charlotte area, because when we had one business, there was a little mound of them out in the flower bed out front.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple of them got me like in that webbing between your fingers,
Oh wow, yes.
and
Okay.
and it's kind of just swelled. It, I guess, kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of blistered up. Your body's hydration went into it, and I just kind of had to pop
Wow.
it. But it kind of smarted for a
Yes.
few days.
My ignorance is easy to see, but what makes them so painful? Is it formic acid that any other ant would have, or is it a different sort of acid that the?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I
I don't know.
I-
Maybe it's the concentration or the different
Yeah.
molecular structure to it. But yeah, they're not fun.
No. I wonder if that, whatever it is that makes fire ants so painful, I wonder if there's some medical advancement to be found through that, as there is with snake venom, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's very, very painful. Actually, it's very useful, or will be in another 50 years when we figure out, or 100 years, when we figure out its real advantages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, growing up, you wouldn't see as much in the house. We lived in a, established neighborhood. There was just, your bunch of houses and stuff like that had been there for a while. So we didn't see too much at home, but I mentioned on this before, we got a lake house when I was 7.
Yeah.
So we always had more interesting things down there. We did have the water snakes but we always had the little turtles too.
Yes.
Slider turtles. The ones that kind of have the little stripes on them.
Okay.
Yeah. We always, and it'd be neat if you could catch a little baby one. We wouldn't keep it, but hold it in your hand for a minute or two, and then let him go off. And we'd kind of get the terrapins every once in a while, the little box turtles, the land turtles. You'd run into one of those every once in a while and see those.
Yeah, we have a lot of turtles in the lake down here.
Yeah, and they're probably those kind of more flat-shelled ones.
But get to quite a size, 12, 18 inches long, somewhere
easily.
In there,
Yeah, and they come out on a log and sun themselves for a while.
Yes, exactly, and I like to watch them when I'm pottering about down in my boathouse. And when you're inside the boathouse, it's much easier to see down into the water because the reflection of the surface is taken away because it's covered over. When the turtles see me or anybody else, but me in my case, they're off like a shot. In a split second, they're gone. And I like to just stand there and watch them as they nibbling away at the algae and whatever is growing around the boat dock itself. But then as soon as they realise that you're watching them, there's this moment of panic when they realise that, oh my goodness, we're being observed. Yeah.
Well, another, this kind of reminded me of a funny story. I used to work at Goody's Family Clothing. I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
Well, the way it was set up, they had a little break room, and the way the angle of that side of the building went down, and then it kind of did a 45-degree angle down this other part, and that was an entrance was there. We always went in and out that. There was a main entrance that really nobody used. It was a little more ornate, and for visitors and all that would come. But we always went in the side thing.
The posh entrance.
I guess, yeah, exactly. Right. And it's one of these you walk up and the sliding doors would open by the pressure, or whatever. So we were sitting there in the break room one day, and we noticed this skunk came out of nowhere, and he's messing around that door. And we're, many hallways down safely in the break room, and we're just sitting there going, get on the pad, hit the pad, because if he goes in, it's going to be an interesting day for all of us. We're younger and was like going, it's going to be hilarious if this skunk gets in the building. But he kind of poked around. He never, I think, had enough pressure to make that thing trigger. But man, that would have been a wild day at the office.
Yeah. Have you ever been sprayed by a skunk?
No, I better knock on wood somewhere here. But
and again,
I've never encountered one. I've never even seen one in a while.
Well, I'm not aware of ever seeing one or being close to one. And again, it's not something that we don't have those in England. And I'm going to say the wider Europe. I'm not aware. I might be wrong there, but I don't think so. I have a feeling again they're a North American thing.
They may be. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm only aware of their reputation through the media. But and you can't wash this stuff off, can you? It stays with you and just lingers and will not leave you seemingly for days.
Again, I hope I never find out firsthand.
Yeah.
The old adage, well, not adage, but the old wives' tale remedy, which may be true or not, you bathe in tomato juice, and it helps alleviate
right?
it. I don't know how true that is or not. But
yes. Well,
plus, that's an investment in bathing or in tomato juice if you're going to fill a tub with it.
That's an expensive cure. Well, was that squirrels playing?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, gentle listener, if you have been sprayed by I was going to say a squirrel. If you have been sprayed by a skunk.
That's a whole different story.
If you have been sprayed by a skunk, we'd love to know about it. Because we'd like to know, wouldn't we? It'd be kind of interesting to know. I don't know anybody personally that's been sprayed by a skunk. So if you've got that,
well, there may be somebody out there that's made a pet out of one. You take surgically remove those scent glands or whatever,
gland, yeah.
And I've heard of them being pets. They may be good pets. I don't know.
Yes.
Probably like anything. If you raise them from little ones, they'd probably be fine. But yeah, who knows?
Yes, I can't. I'm struggling to see the attraction of a skunk for a pet, but maybe that's just me and you that don't like the idea of that.
Well, we all probably had some friends somewhere down the line had some oddball pet that's never even think of having him as one. But
well, all sorts of odd creatures have become pets over the years, haven't they? Whether it's tarantula spiders or huge snakes. I'm not attracted to any of that. Just a, full-size proper Labrador type dog would do me.
Yeah.
Do me.
Well-
I don't need a skunk as a pet.
Well, my wife's got a friend that lives, where's she? She may be the one that lives out in Texas. They said they've got a wild raccoon that shows up every evening for his dinner. I take it, I can't say he because it's a she, because at some point she had babies and then started bringing the babies over for dinner as well.
Oh, really?
And she said at some point, I guess when they get to whatever maturity, she was like, okay, now you're no longer my offspring, you're competition.
Yes.
And she just said she ran them off. So I've brought you into this world. Go out, find your own way.
Yeah.
Stay off my source of hot dogs and whatever else they were handed. Well, I mean, I think it takes us kind of almost roundabout back to it. But when Dad was still alive, he and Mom were both still living at this time. They had a squirrel in the yard that Dad would. They had one of those kind of steps, like a maybe 5-step stone type thing, cast. Pre-made stairs.
Okay.
Out of concrete.
Okay.
It was in the backyard from some project that he'd done. I think they did some renovation and it was left over or something.
Yeah.
And he'd go out and leave a couple of walnuts or pecans out there, and he said, every day that squirrel would come by and sit up and have his treat. So kind of adopted him. So.
What I know of squirrels is very little, but we've seen those videos of squirrels tackling all sorts of different traps and wires and all sorts of things to get to the nut.
Oh, they're amazing acrobats.
They're clearly very smart creatures as well, aren't they, to be able to remember that. I guess the idea is that each day or each week, when the squirrel gets used to getting through obstacle 1 and 2, you build a fresh obstacle, number 3, and then 4 and 5. But for the squirrel to remember all of that and get through it so fast, I think that's a cool thing.
They're highly motivated. And the best one I ever saw, I just saw it on some video or something. It was long before all the viral stuff on media and all this, but it was the guy had rigged it up where if the squirrel jumped, if the bird feeder had a ledge, but birds weigh so little, they would land on that little ledge and eat their food. But when the weight of a squirrel landed on it, this clown would pop up out of it like a jack-in-the-box.
That's right.
And I'd never seen a squirrel bolt as fast as because he'd hit that thing, that clown head would come out of the top, and he was like shot left right off of it.
Dear old squirrels. Yeah, again, going back full circle, my mum, she loved squirrels. She absolutely loved them. She was fascinated by them. She would have a calendar in the house each year with squirrel pictures on it, and she would have pictures of squirrels on the fridge. Most of them the ones I'd send her through the post, but yeah, they were her favourite animal, I think.
Well, and they certainly can be tamed. I would think you could tame a wild one fairly well. You don't want to take him in the house probably, but enough to where he might eventually get out of your hand. If you slowly work him closer to you.
Judging by what I've seen with the squirrels out here on the decking, I can well believe that, because they seem quite bold. They don't seem afraid.
Oh.
And again, they will just kind of stop and look at me, and I'll look at them, and there'll be maybe 10-15 seconds where nothing happens, and then squirrel will just turn around and just gently walk off and go about his day.
Well, and I always remember this is in It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Kind of toward the end, there's a scene where I think it's when he's in desperation and stuff. He goes back to the office and was it Uncle Billy, and a little squirrel comes up and is like kind of puts his paws up on his elbow. So that's his pet squirrel.
There you go.
Now he's known for, I think they never talk about it, but I think he's known for having pets in the show in the movie.
Okay.
Because at one point doesn't he come in and like the crow flies and lands on his arm.
That
I think they kind of made this underlying story that Uncle Billy has all these tame wild animals, and one of them is a squirrel that just in that one scene comes up and puts his paws up on his elbow and kind of says, "What you doing there, buddy?" So.
Well, Kevin, we have genuinely talked about nothing for all this episode. We're 35 minutes into the episode, so we're going to...
hopefully it's entertaining nothing. There you go.
Don't tell us what you thought we were going to talk about, because
No, it'll come up on the next one.
It'll be useful.
I've got one in the pocket ready to go.
There you go. All right. Well, gentle listener, we must sign off because we're out of time. But thank you for that. And again, if you've got any "I have been sprayed by a skunk" story to share with us, contact at matchettandtheotherguy.com is how to get it over to us. See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
That was better. That wasn't quite as...